Hello my viewers and welcome back to my channel. So today we take a look into a controversial topic that has sparked heated debates across social media platforms. When I say heated debates, I really mean it because a lot of people reacted to this video, guys. Now, this is what happened. Recently, an influencer faced severe backlash after sharing her tour vlog experience in India. Now, in her video, she unabashedly expressed her delight in visiting slum areas, referring to it as her favorite tour experience. But as viewers, we're left questioning, where does the line blur between cultural immersion and exploitation? So join me as we dissect the ethical implications of turning real suffering and poverty into entertainment, and explore the deeper ramifications of commodifying the struggles of marginalized communities for personal enjoyment. But before we get into the videos, remember to subscribe, hit the like button, and don't forget to be part of this conversation because we need to get talking.
This is what I wish I knew before going to India. Even though you'll probably fly into Delhi, don't hang out there. It's really dangerous, extremely polluted. You have to call Uber XLs with SOS buttons because there's such a high rate of harassment. So the tourist area that most of the hotels are in is also known for prostitution, so don't stay there. Do you find yourself in Delhi? Make clothing at the beginning of your trip so you can pick it up at the end. Custom jeans, suits, all incredible. I can't believe I went to India and almost didn't see the Taj Mahal. It is closed on Fridays, so note that. Also, I highly recommend going at sunrise so you don't have to deal with massive crowds. Pack any white shoes and wear closed-toed shoes that are pretty thick because you'll probably get run over by a tuk-tuk at some point. If you are traveling as a female, stay in hostels so you can make friends to go on excursions with. You will feel much safer and much more comfortable in groups, especially in North India. There is literally no toilet paper. I carry baby wipes around with me. Every toilet situation looks like this, so do with that what you want. Airbnb experiences were my favorite tour experiences. I did a slums tour and a cooking class in Mumbai, and both of the hosts were extremely respectful, and I thought this was a great way to learn about the city. Everyone goes for the Golden Triangle, but the south of India is truly magical, and I would prioritize spending the majority of my trip there. See you at the airport.
There's a fine line between wanting to learn about a local population and treating people like they're animals in a zoo. If you are paying money to go see people living in poverty, you have to question that at some point, right? How out of touch do you have to be? This is a perfect example that travel doesn't make you culturally sensitive by default. You can travel the whole world and still have a patronizing mentality. You can travel the whole world and still exoticize other people and interact with them as if they exist for your entertainment.
You are not better than poor people. So, this influencer went to India. Yep, in the same sentence, she said, slums tour and cooking class. The poor are not a zoo to go visit. And I want to know, who raised you? Who raised you to think, I'm going to pay money to a tour guide to not only watch poor people, but tell the whole internet that you are so callous, that you went on both a tour of poverty and a place where you get to eat lavishly. I mean, I get it. We live in a colonial state where people like you think much of the global south is quaint and just there to make you feel something. But guess what? One, thankfully you went to only the barest minimum of India. You went to the places where you can get the pictures that will prove that you are a world traveler. India is like a third of the United States. Not every place looks like those slums, first of all. The people who really live there live in places that wouldn't be so different for us than what we live in. Many of the urban centers have people of all different strata. And I only say this because one thing you did was play into every Westerner's stereotype of India. Because hey, then the vast majority of people won't have to put up with you. But the bigger thing you did was center yourself. It's all about you, isn't it, honey? You are the main character. And somehow you perceive some sort of specialness when it was just an act. I mean, what did you do to be special? You certainly didn't learn about global politics and how so much of the poverty in India is thanks to both the extraction of resources by the British and the destruction of self-rule by the British. You certainly didn't learn empathy. That's definitely not what makes you special. What is it? What makes you so much more special than those people? Tell me.
Okay, my only question. What is the point of highlighting the slums tour, or what is the point of even having a slums tour? Is it just an exercise in validating the Western world's opinion and approach towards India, that, you know, the place is dirty, the place is trash ridden. Oh yeah, they may have some pockets of beauty, but, you know, look at this place, it is so dirty. Is that the purpose of this exercise? Or is the purpose to show the world that, okay, look at these people, they are living in so much poverty, and look at me, I get to travel, I get to stay in these kind of beautiful places, and then I still found in myself to go and look at these people living in poverty. What, again, is the purpose of the slum store and highlighting the slum store?
It's gotta be illegal to be this ignorant. Just for context, this woman visited India and one of her favorite tourist attractions was experiencing one of the Mumbai slums. It's hearing privileged people say brain dead, tone deaf, things like that with a straight face that makes me want to go on a Hall of Fame intergenerational crash out. It's like saying I went to Chicago, sat passenger side in a Trackhawk and watched what happened in O-Block. Or that I paid for a needle of a homeless San Francisco native and watched them go through the hippie experience. Real suffering and poverty that people have to live through is not an exhibit or a theater for you to enjoy. Imagine you're seeing two kids scrounging through trash for food and clothing, and you're sitting there with your Prada sunglasses and your Birkenstocks, and you're thinking, damn, some people in this world got it really bad. I should be more grateful. And then go on to say with your full chest that it was one of the best parts of your trip. Gloating about it online, saying it was so bad, and then by tomorrow's Pilates class, completely forgetting about it. God didn't bless you with this much money to finance your travels. He was probably hoping that this much covered at least half the amount of therapy that you need to figure out what is wrong with you. And I know people like you know just how beautiful places in India like Kerala and Goa are, but you want to paint this narrative. And in that way, you're no different from these lying CS influencers.
This girl is already getting a lot of hate, but ignorance while traveling makes me so angry, because if you have the privilege to be able to travel, then I feel like you should have the responsibility to at least do a little bit of homework. And while I don't think this girl is completely to blame, because there are a lot of big travel influencers that do extreme tourism, as in visiting highly impoverished communities or even war zones, to the point where they have to hire militia or bodyguards just to say that they've been to a place. But I think there's two types of ways you can go about doing this type of tourism. You can choose a tour operator where the proceeds go towards the community and use the tour as a time to deepen your empathy and compassion. And then you get the types of people that go on these tours and come out the other end saying, I learned what true happiness was from these people that had nothing. But yeah, there's other areas of the world where slum tourism is also popular, like Medellin, Colombia, Rio de Janeiro. And if you do go to those places and you want to see the favela, or really any country that is still developing or third world, do a little research first. Make sure you're choosing tour operators that are helping the community. Eat at locally owned places, not chain restaurants, and try to choose some hotels that are locally owned, or at least owned by someone who is from that country and not just a huge outside corporation.
Yeah, so everybody's stitching this shocked, but this is actually not shocking to me at all. You know, in Hamilton, when Aaron Burr says there's nothing rich folks love more than going downtown and slumming it with the poor, this is what he's talking about. Slumming it is an actual thing. And if I'm not mistaken, it gets its name from Victorian American times, when the rich in New York, like the Vanderbilts, Rothschilds, etc., would take their carriages and their coachmen and go downtown to the slums and down by the river, and they would just look in shock and horror. This was a thing in Victorian London as well. They would marvel at the poor. They would throw things at them, sometimes money, sometimes food. They would go into the opium dens, and you can Google it. There's tons of heiresses that are actually in the slums because they were slumming it. So the fact that this is still a thing, I'm not shocked, because this is like their ancestral DNA just waking up, you know, like, not surprising. Here's some more pictures of it. As you can see, ladies would often do it. Of course they would. And they would oftentimes be accompanied by a gentleman. Or a lot of times the police would do it. And also the police would charge to be a personal escort and take these people around the slums. Majority of the first orphanages, charities, etc. were all a byproduct of slumming, and a lot of rich, affluent women going down, and as you can see, realizing that children would be begging, working, and often living in squalor, and they would be horrified and upset at the conditions that their, right here, rich husband would have caused, and they would have then used his money to try to fix it.
Excuse me, you did a what tour? You did it, Like, first and foremost, why are we just skipping past that and going on to the cooking class? Like, you didn't just say you went on a tour of slums. Second of all, do we not see how incredibly, tone deaf it is?
Yeah, my favorite tour was the tour of the slums. I loved looking down on all the people in direct poverty, because I know that that's not me.
Congrats, babe. Are you proud of that? Are you proud of essentially treating people like they're in a zoo that you can just pay a little bit of money to onlook them? And you know for a fact that the money she spent on that tour is not going towards lifting those people out of poverty. It's just going into the tour operator's pocket. It's just genuinely insane to me how comfortable people have gotten in posting on this app to the point where they can say loud and proud that one of their favorite parts of their vacation was touring a slum.
What is wrong with you guys? India is the only place that the internet without fail every time calling it smelly instead of recognizing it as beautiful and still recovering from colonial exploitation. And the thing that they use to put Indians back generations every time is our food, specifically the street food. Ew, your food looks like throw up. They're not wearing gloves. There's animals running all around it. We're Americans. Sometimes we drink beer out of a shoe that we've owned for 3 years. For every Feral Wine Wednesday, we drink alk mixed with the moist sweat of elderly Italian bare feet that crush the grapes that we drink. We're also acting like we don't all know someone who goes out to the bar every night and brings home the most raunchy chick. I'm talking serious mileage and then goes in for a lick of her chocolate starburst. India is infamous for cooking. There's a reason why the British national dish is chicken tikka masala and why most Americans would rather eat out at an Indian restaurant than even cook at home. So if you know even a little bit about traveling and realistically aren't broke, you'd be going to the Michelin-starred dabas and eateries that people are amazed by in India. But it's much more funny and gets more views because it fits the narrative, so you go up to a random person on the side of the street who's clearly trying to make ends meet, you record him in disgusting conditions making food because that's all he can afford. It's like me coming to America and exclusively eating in diners and taco trucks that are closed by the health inspectors for giving you crazy diarrhea. You need help because it's not normal to hate a culture that you barely know this much.
When I saw this video, I just had to jump on it and share my own 2 cents as well on what I think about this video. For me, the influencer's portrayal of her slum tour experience raises critical questions about ethical tourism and the commodification of poverty. While it's understandable, to want to engage with local cultures and communities during travel, there's a fine line between genuine cultural exchange and voyeuristic exploitation. Firstly, it's important to recognize the power dynamics at play when tourists visit impoverished areas. The disparity in socio-economic status between the visitor and the residents of these communities can create a sense of voyeurism, where poverty becomes a spectacle for the privileged observer. Now, this dynamic perpetuates harmful stereotypes and reduces individuals living in poverty to more objects of curiosity. Moreover, the influencer's choice of language, describing the slum tour as her favorite experience. How can this be your favorite experience, guys? Now, this just demonstrates a profound disconnect from the reality of the residents' lives. Poverty and suffering are not commodities to be enjoyed or ranked based on personal preferences. Such comments trivialize the harsh realities faced by those living in impoverished conditions and showcase a lack of empathy and sensitivity. The notion of poverty tourism raises concerns about the exploitation of vulnerable communities for profit. When individuals pay for guided tours of slums or impoverished areas, they inadvertently contribute to a system that capitalizes on the misfortune of others. Now, this form of tourism can perpetuate cycles of poverty by failing to address the root causes of inequality and instead treating poverty as a marketable attraction. What's marketable about people who are poor, like people living in poverty? Now, as responsible travelers, it's very crucial to approach cultural immersion with humility, respect, and a genuine desire to understand and uplift marginalized communities rather than treating poverty as a form of entertainment. Travelers should strive to engage in ethical tourism practices that prioritize mutual respect, dignity, and empowerment. The controversy surrounding the influencer's slum tour experience serves as a stark reminder of the ethical complexities inherent in travel and cultural exchange. By critically examining our motivations and behaviors as travelers, we can work towards fostering meaningful connections, promoting social justice, and contributing positively to the communities we visit. Now, the phenomenon of poverty tourism, also known as slum tourism or tourism, has gained gained traction in recent years, with tour operators offering guided visits to impoverished areas in various parts of the world. While proponents argue that such tours promote awareness and generate income for struggling communities, critics contend that they perpetuate harmful stereotypes, exploit the marginalized, and fail to address the underlying systemic issues contributing to poverty. Do the same money they even pay even go to these communities, like to develop the same people? I highly doubt it. I don't think so. One of the primary concerns surrounding poverty tourism is the portrayal of poverty as a tourist attraction, reducing complex social issues to simplistic narratives for the entertainment of outsiders. By framing poverty as a sightseeing experience, these tours risk objectifying individuals living in impoverished conditions, stripping them of their legacy, dignity, and humanity. Poverty tourism often perpetuates a skewed and superficial understanding of poverty, focusing solely on the visible manifestations of deprivation, while overlooking the structural inequalities and systemic injustices that underpin it. Now, visitors may leave with a distorted impression of the communities they've visited, failing to grasp the full extent of the challenges faced by residents or the resilience and richness of their cultures. Now, there's a troubling power dynamic inherent in poverty tourism, wherein affluent tourists wield economic privilege and social capital over impoverished communities. Tourists may inadvertently reinforce notions of Western superiority and exotism, perpetuating harmful stereotypes and reinforcing existing power imbalances. Moreover, the economic benefits of poverty tourism are often limited and unevenly distributed, with a significant portion of the profits flowing to tour operators rather than directly benefiting the communities being toured. In some cases, residents may feel coerced or exploited into participating in tours for financial gain, further exacerbating their vulnerability and dependence on tourism revenue. Now, critics argue that poverty tourism ultimately serves to alleviate the consciences of privileged tourists without addressing the root causes of poverty or empowering marginalized communities to uplift themselves. Instead of engaging in poverty tourism, travelers should seek out responsible alternatives, such as community-based tourism initiatives that prioritize collaboration, empowerment, and sustainable development. Now, as we conclude our exploration of poverty tourism, it's evident that this practice raises complex ethical questions that demand careful consideration. While some may argue that such tours promote awareness and economic opportunities for impoverished communities, others contend that they perpetuate harmful stereotypes, exploit the marginalized, and fail to address systemic inequalities. Now, as viewers, it's essential for us to reflect on our own perspectives and beliefs regarding poverty tourism. Do we view it as a valuable means of cultural exchange and economic empowerment, or do we see it as a form of exploitation and voyeurism? What responsibilities do tourists have when engaging with marginalized communities, and how can we ensure that our travel experiences are grounded in respect, empathy, and solidarity? Now, ultimately, the conversation surrounding poverty tourism invites us to critically examine our assumptions, challenge dominant narratives, and envision alternative models of tourism that prioritize social justice and mutual understanding. By engaging in thoughtful dialogue and seeking out responsible travel practices, I think people can work towards creating a more equitable and compassionate world for all. Now, as always, I always encourage my viewers to share their thoughts and perspectives in the comment section below. So what do you think about poverty tourism, and how do you believe people can promote ethical and sustainable travel experiences? Let's continue this important conversation together in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching, and see you in my next video.